welcome to the Knitted by Whitney YouTube channel. I am in a new filming location today because I have a special video to bring to you. This is not a podcast episode, this is something a little different. I have been thinking about the kind of content that I want to bring to my channel in the next few months to a year, and I knew pretty quickly what kind of content I wanted to bring, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be popular among my viewers. Back in April, I released my top 50 free size-inclusive patterns video, and this was a huge success for my channel. Not only is it my most popular video, it's also the video that has brought me such an amazing positive response from my viewers. This was such a hit with so many people, and I really enjoyed making it, so I figured I would do more videos like this. I'm going to be calling these types of videos pattern roundup videos, and I'm going to be including a playlist on my channel so that they're all going to be saved in one place. Now each video is going to have a slightly different theme to it, and today I'm going to be doing the first of a set of two videos that are sort of connected, sort of opposite of each other, but when you see each one you'll understand why they go together. So without further ado, let me introduce you to my top 20 quick to knit size inclusive patterns. I am very excited to be sharing these patterns with you today because a lot of these are really great patterns that don't take very long to make, even if you're making a larger size like I normally do, and they're usually quite fun patterns to make. So let's get into this, shall we? Number one on my list is the Easy Eyelet Yoke Sweater by Knitatude. Now I haven't knit this pattern specifically, but I have knit her Easy Eyelet Yoke dress, which uses the same yoke construction, and this is why this pattern goes so fast. I have never done yarn over increases in a yoke pattern before, but let me tell you, they go so fast. I was so shocked at how quickly I finished the yoke to this dress, and that translates as well in the sweater version of the pattern. It's also knit in worsted weight yarn, which tends to go pretty quickly. Now, this pattern also is very beginner friendly. It doesn't have any little fiddly bits such as short rows or intricate construction. It's very simple and easy to follow, and I highly recommend this pattern. I've also got this in my queue with two different sets of yarn that I want to use to make it. Number two on my list is the Maya Top by Gavriella Treminio, and I do hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, I do apologize. This is a really great wide neck, slightly cropped t-shirt style sweater. It's knit with fingering weight yarn, but you're using large needles, and with that large gauge, this pattern just flies. Also, because you're doing a wide scoop, it means you don't have to do so many yoke stitches and so many yoke increases, which can sometimes drag a pattern and make it take a little bit longer. Also, with the crop style, you can get away with making a garment with not too many skeins of fingering weight yarn. So if you have some special yarn in your stash, this is a great pattern to use it for. This is another pattern on this list that is in my Ravelry queue. You're going to notice a trend. I have quite a few of these in my Ravelry queue because they're all really great patterns that I can definitely see in my handmade wardrobe. Number three on this list is Lento by Jonna Hietala for Laine magazine. Again, I do hope I pronounced that correctly. If not, I do apologize. This is a pattern that was suggested by Rebecca from the Crayabea. I put a question box up in my Instagram stories a little while ago to get some suggestions from my followers on Instagram. So this is a bit of a crowdsourced video. Some of these patterns are my suggestions, other ones were suggested to me, but they are all really great quick knits. Rebecca knit this pattern, I think, in less than 2 weeks. And even though it is a fingering weight sweater, it is, again, knit at a large gauge. It knits up quickly. It's a very simple raglan construction, which is fairly simple to follow. You don't have to keep track too much. It's quite mindless. And once you get to the body and sleeves, you're in the sea of stockinette. So it won't take you too long. You can do that while watching TV. Before you know it, it's done. Numbers 4 and 5 on this list I'm lumping together because they are similar designs by the same designer. I am talking of the Ripple Bralette and the Ripple Bralette DK by Jessie Maed. I've never made these patterns myself, but they are hugely popular judging by the number of projects on their pattern pages on Ravelry, as well as the number of times that I see them shared on Instagram. And everybody I know who has made them has loved them. They're a great use of just a little bit of yarn that you have. So if you have something special that you want to use but you don't want an accessory, this is a great pattern to use that gives you a garment with not too much yardage. I've also heard that the rib texture is extremely addictive, and it's great TV knitting because the stitch is so repetitive, it's easy to do without looking at it too often. Number 6 on this list is the Magic Hour sweater by Two of Wands. I love Two of Wands' patterns because they are very classic designs that really fit well into your wardrobe, and some of them are extremely quick to knit. Case in point, the Magic Hour sweater. Now there's a couple reasons why this one is a quick knit. First of all, it is knit all in garter stitch other than the ribbed cuffs and hem and neckline. And that garter stitch is done flat. Yes, this is a seamed garment, but that's part of why this garment goes really quickly. By doing garter stitch flat, it means you're almost always knitting your stitches. You don't have to do very many purl stitches, which makes the garment go super fast because, let's face it, most of us are quicker at knitting than purling. But by doing it in pieces, it's more of a commute-friendly pattern, so you can take it with you wherever you go and just do a few rows here and there, and before you know it, you've got all your pieces done and you just need to seam them together. Yes, the seaming might take you a bit of time. I know it takes me some time, but some people are actually really good at seaming and they get it done quite quickly. Also, because you're knitting a V-neck, you're saving yourself some of the stitches that you would need to do with your front piece, so it goes a little bit faster and uses a little less yarn. The large gauge of the garter stitch also allows it to stretch out, so you don't have to knit as much length either. So there are quite a few ways in which this is a very quick knit to make. Number 7 on this list is the Lanesplitter Skirt by Tina Whitmore. I also included this on my top 50 free size inclusive patterns list, but I just had to bring it back for this video because this is such a quick knit to make. I made this several years ago and I actually don't have my Lanesplitter anymore because I made it with yarn that wasn't really good quality, so it didn't last for me. But I definitely want to make it again because it's such a staple wardrobe piece. This is also a really great customizable piece because you can make it as long or as short as you would like it to be. It's a corner to corner design, so you start with only a few stitches for your cast on and then you increase until you get to the point that you like the length of your skirt. And all you're doing then is just knitting until you like the width of it and then decreasing down to a triangle again, and you just seam the side together. This is such an addictive knit because the stitch pattern is one of those just one more row type designs. Getting to the next purl bump is something that you just want to do over and over again because you feel like you're achieving so much, and it's easier to see your progress that you're making because those garter stitches are about an inch apart. So it's really easy to measure your progress, and I found that it went so quickly. Once you finish that general part of the skirt, you just need to do, I think it was a 3x3 or a 4x4 ribbed waistband, and you're done. Number 8 on this list is the Ursa sweater by Jacqueline Cieslak. I love this pattern because it's a nice fitted sweater that uses bulky weight yarn. Most bulky weight patterns tend to be these really big, oversized, cozy sweaters, which there's nothing wrong with, but it's really nice to be able to make more of a fitted sweater using a bulky yarn because sometimes you just want your sweater to be done really quickly. This is another great pattern that doesn't use a lot of yarn either because of the crop design and the really nice deep V. I also really love how the deep V is mirrored in the upwards triangle of the brioche stitches on the hem of the sweater. It creates this really nice visual line, and it really just makes the sweater look really stylish. Number 9 on this list is probably the most popular pattern of all of the ones on my list, and that is the Love Note by Tin Can Knits. This is such a popular pattern. It has hundreds of projects on Ravelry, and there's always a call going on for people wanting to make love notes because they're such great quick knits. And they're another pattern that only uses a little bit of yarn, so you can get away with not having to spend too much on yarn to make a full sweater. Now, this pattern is knit at a very large gauge, so even though it's fingering weight, it goes really quickly. And once you're done that beautiful lace across the yoke, you're basically just doing a stockinette in the round sweater, and that's great TV knitting. It goes super quickly. Also, the cropped length means that you get to finish the body a lot quicker than you would if you were doing a full-length sweater. Numbers 10 and 11 on this list are another pair that I'm combining together because they're similar designs by the same designer. These are the Ghost Whisperer top and Phantom Fuzz, both by Park Williams. I love these patterns because not only are they quick to knit, they also allow you to show off some beautiful mohair yarn, which, let's face it, mohair is having a moment right now. Everybody loves using mohair either by itself, such as in these patterns, or held double with another non-mohair yarn. I also really love how stylish these patterns can be because you get to experiment with what you would wear underneath them because they are see-through. Now, I love how Park has styled her Ghost Whisperer top, both in her hot pink version where she wears a matching bandeau underneath, as well as she has a different version, or maybe it's a tester photo, that shows the Ghost Whisperer top in one color mohair, but wearing a contrasting colored top underneath. Now, if you find that those are still a little too see-through for you, you don't like how much you can see underneath, you can always hold your mohair double and get more of an opaque texture, but it will still have a little bit of sheerness. And you can always wear a top underneath to feel more comfortable. Number 12 on this list is the Cinnabar sweater by Maven Crafted. Similar to the Lanesplitter skirt, this is another one of those ridge patterns that just makes you want to knit one more row to get to the next purl bump. So it's one of those patterns that really pushes you to keep knitting without even realizing that you're doing it. So you reach the length that you want sooner than you would if you were knitting a stockinette garment and you needed to measure how far you were going. I really like the purl bumps for that reason because sometimes I just don't want to have to pull out my measuring tape all the time to measure how far I've gone. It's kind of nice to just see I only need to do, let's say, 3 purl ridges. Well, I've got one done. Oh, I might as well just go to the next one, right? And I get to the next one. Oh, I still have time. I still feel like knitting. Let's get to the next one. So it goes really quickly. I also really love that the sleeves on this garment are knit straight down. You don't have to do any sleeve decreases, so you don't have to keep track of anything. And not having to worry about that means that this is great TV knitting and you can just work on it without having to check off your decreases or use a bit of brain power, which I really like sometimes, especially when you've done all of your yoke work. It's kind of nice to just sit back and work on a bit that you don't need to think about too much. Number 13 on my list is Wild Wind by Wool & Pine Designs. This is another pattern that was suggested by one of my Instagram followers. And I can definitely see why this is a quick knit to make. It's essentially 2 squares that you then seam together, leaving room for your arms and your head. Yes, they're very decorative squares, but I've heard that the lace pattern is pretty simple to follow. I also really like that this is a really cute cropped style that would be great for the spring and summer, especially wearing it with some denim shorts or maybe over your bathing suit for the beach. It's really cute for those warm months. Number 14 on this list is the Holiday Slipover by Petite Knit. Now, this is probably one of the fastest patterns on this list. Both Rebecca from the Carabea and Laura Penrose of Penrose Knits have knit this sweater in under a day, or just over a day. Now, I want to try that for myself, and I think this is going to be my very first petite knit pattern that I ever make. After seeing Rebecca and Laura make this pattern, I can definitely see why it's such a quick knit. First of all, it's knit in super bulky yarn. Any project in super bulky is going to go fairly quickly. But this one goes especially quickly because of the construction. Essentially, you start your back panel, knit it for a certain length, then do your front panel until it meets the same length. Then you join in the round, knit some stockinette for a bit, add your ribbing, and then you go back and you just need to add the neck ribbing and the arm ribbing. That sounds really quick, right? So I'm actually going to be experimenting with this myself. No, I am not going to try and knit this in a day. You've heard me talk on and on about how I am a slow knitter, but I am going to try and knit it in a weekend. Probably a long weekend because I don't want to give myself too much pressure. And if all goes well, I'm going to try and bring you along for the ride. Numbers 15 and 16 on this list are another pair of similar patterns made by the same designer. And it might surprise you as to why they're on this list, because they're both dresses. I know, how can a dress be a quick knit? But I can speak from experience for these patterns. I'm talking about Augustus number 11 and Augustus number 21, both sweater dresses. Now, I made Augustus number 21 back in January of this year, and I did a podcast episode about it, which I'll link right here. Like I said in that video, I was shocked at how quickly this pattern knitted up, especially considering it has some intricate lace on the sleeve cuffs and on the hem of the skirt. I knit this pattern in 2 weeks, and I'm a slow knitter. I talk all the time about how slow of a knitter I am, but I did it in 2 weeks. I still can't believe it. I think it was magic. I didn't knit on it like all the time. It wasn't something that I just like sat down and worked on for hours at a time. I worked on it at the same rate that I work on most of my projects, but it was done before I realized. And I think that's owed to partly the gauge, partly the size of yarn, but also the construction. It is a fairly simple construction, and there's a lot of stockinette, which makes this pattern go very quickly. And I also really enjoyed that it was a lot of good TV knitting. I even managed to work on the lace work while watching TV. Made a mistake a couple times, so I probably won't do that again, but I am going to make this pattern again. I don't have my yellow version anymore because I really wasn't happy with it afterwards, and that's because I made it with acrylic yarn. I just didn't like how it felt, how it hung. It just wasn't the right yarn for the pattern. So I'm going to be tackling that in the future, but you'll just have to wait and see when that happens. Number 17 on this list is the Chunky Soufflé by Laura Penrose. I am in love with Laura's soufflé designs, and this is a really great quick to knit one. Everybody I know who tested this design or who knit it after the pattern was out has raved about how quickly this knits up. My friend Cassandra of Knits with Nimbus knit this in like 5 days. I'm still in shock. I can't believe it. But it's one of those really great large gauge, large yarn, simple circular yoke construction, very easy to follow. And the only really like fiddly bit is making that ruffle across the yoke. But let me tell you, the ruffle is so worth it. I made Laura's original soufflé, which is knit in much smaller yarn, but I can tell you from experience, that ruffle is worth every single stitch because it is so freaking cute. I love this pattern. I think it looks amazing on all of the testers who made it, and it's another great quick knit that's going to be so cozy and cuddly once you knit it up. Number 18 on my list is the Year-Round Cardigan by Melissa Georges. This was a pattern suggested by one of my Instagram followers, and looking at this pattern, I definitely see how it's a really quick knit. It's knit using worsted weight yarn, but it's on a really large gauge, so that makes the project go a lot quicker. Also throw in the fact that you're knitting it in a cropped length with 3/4 length sleeves, and you don't have to worry about doing a button band because it's an open cardigan, means it's going to be over pretty quickly. I really like this pattern because it looks like a really great cozy sweater to throw on when you're at home. It kind of reminds me of the classic bed jacket style, something that you can just get really cozy in when you're just snuggling in bed, or if you're sitting watching TV and you need another cozy layer on top. Number 19 on this list might surprise you because it is a fingering weight t-shirt. I'm talking about the Tumble Tee by Lydia Morrow. This was suggested by one of my friends on Instagram, and when I looked closer at the pattern, I could see why it was a quick knit to make. Yes, it's a fingering weight t-shirt, but it does go pretty quickly because it has simple raglan construction, as well as you're knitting a lot of it in the round, all in stockinette, which a lot of us would say is one of the fastest ways to knit. Now this also goes pretty quickly because it is a crop style t-shirt, but it's also easy to customize if you want to have a bit more length. And lastly, number 20 on my list is the Botanical Tee by Knitatude. This is a pattern that I test knit for Knitatude, and I loved it so much that I immediately needed to cast it on again once the pattern was out. Now I can attest to how quickly this pattern goes because I knit my second one because I wanted to have something to wear when the apple blossoms were out on our tree in our backyard. And I started the pattern when the buds had just come out, and I finished it just as the flowers were in full bloom. So that took me, I think, maybe 12 days, which it might take someone less, but considering I am a slow knitter, I was very impressed with how quickly this knitted up. It's a quick knit because you're knitting it at a fairly large gauge and you're doing a very easy to follow lacework pattern. I am not a fan of lace, but I love the lace pattern on this sweater. Those leaf stitches are so beautiful, and the eyelets on the back of the sweater are super cute. This pattern is really addictive to make because the lace chart is really easy to follow, and because you only need to do so many repeats of those leaves, it's easy to see how far you've come and how much further you have left to go. It's also really easy to finish it up at the end because Chantel likes to use a lot of beginner-friendly methods for finishing your knits, And those are usually the quicker methods, which I always appreciate because sometimes you just want a quick knit that's done in no time. And that wraps up this list of my top 20 quick to knit size inclusive patterns. I'm hoping to get the follow-up video out probably within the next week or so. And when you see the topic of that video, you'll understand why they kind of go hand in hand. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these great patterns, and I hope you find something that's new to you or something you might like to make. Let me know in the comments if you have any other quick to knit patterns. I'd love to know. If this is your first time checking out my channel, thank you so much. I'm glad that you're here. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. If you want to stick around and see some of my other content, feel free to hit subscribe and check out my other videos. I hope you all enjoyed this special video, and I hope you look forward to seeing more content like this on my channel. I'm gonna have a few more videos like this coming out soon. I hope you enjoy them. I really enjoy making them, and that's all to say. Everyone take care. Happy knitting!